Ash Wednesday is the beginning of the Lenten season. Now, it feels like we just finished up Christmas, doesn't it? And Easter's early this year. So Ash Wednesday begins the 40-day season where we reflect on, together, the death and resurrection of Jesus. It's a time of preparation and reflection. So this Wednesday evening, to kick off the Lenten season, we're going to do something a bit different than we've done in years past. It's Valentine's Day. And we knew that there's going to be some conflict there. Some of you are going to want to go out as families or as couples. So rather than having a worship service this Wednesday night, we're going to do what we call continuous communion and ashes. So anytime between 6 and 7 o'clock Wednesday night, you can come on over here, and we will have a little flyer for you to work through that will set you up for communion. You can read it by yourself. You can do it as couples. You can do it as families. And then when you're ready, just come forward. We'll have communion together. We'll share communion with you, and we'll mark you with the ashes, and then you can head out. And so it won't be a service for an hour. You just come and go as you can between 6 and 7 o'clock Wednesday night. Now, as I mentioned, Lent is the season where we focus and we find intentional ways to focus on the death and resurrection of Jesus. So we just did that during the Advent season, right? Our whole focus is on Christmas and on the birth of Jesus. And one of the things that we do during the Advent season is we go shopping and we buy gifts and we give gifts to remind ourselves of the greatest gift ever given, and that's the gift Jesus. So some traditions in Christianity during the Lenten season ask their people to do something to help them reflect on the death and resurrection of Jesus, particularly the Catholics. The Catholics have always been really good at this. And generally what the Catholics will do is they'll ask you to give up something for Lent, all right, as a form of sacrifice, so that as you move through this season, you think about the sacrifice of Jesus. So you might give up a cup of coffee, you might give up chocolates for Lent, you might give up shopping or sleep, whatever it is, you just give something up. And then when you start to crave that thing, when you want that drink of coffee or you want that piece of chocolate, it's a reminder to you to pause and reflect on the death and resurrection of Jesus, maybe say a little prayer, God, thank you for your love, thank you for the grace that you've shown to us. So we want to build on that this year and do a form of that to invite you this Lenten season to think about the death and resurrection of Jesus. And I want to say up front, if you want to do this, great. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. God loves you either way. This has nothing to do with God's love. This is simply about us and having a tool to think about the Lenten season. So what we're going to call this Lenten season is the 1% revolution. And let me tell you what this means and the two opportunities that you're going to have during the Lenten season to do something that will bring you joy and bring others joy and help you reflect on the joy that Jesus brings because of his death and resurrection. Now, we happen to live in a culture that's all or nothing. When we talk about doing something, we've got to do it with 110%. If you don't give 110%, whatever that means, you haven't really done it. And because we live in this culture of all or nothing, many of us end up doing nothing at all. So, for example, some of us say, I really need to exercise, but I don't have an hour and a half to give, and so because I can't give an hour and a half a day to exercise, I'm not going to exercise at all. It's either 100% or nothing. Or I need to lose weight, and even though I need to lose weight, I can't just eat lettuce and celery every day. I'm not going to do that kind of diet. I can't do it the way I should do it, so I'm not going to do it at all. And so we live in that kind of culture. We either have to do it to excess or not at all. And yet science tells us that a 1% change in your life can lead to dramatic results down the line. And by just doing one little thing, it can begin to change your whole life. So let me give you a few examples of what that means. 1% of your day is made up of 14 minutes, all right? Now, when you think about the scheme of things, 14 minutes, that's not a lot of time. But if you set aside 14 minutes a day to do something you've always wanted to do, it could change your life and bring joy to you. So, for example, let's say that you do think to yourself, I should at least get out walking, but I don't have an hour and a half to walk every day. I don't have 30 minutes to walk every day. So why not during the Lenten season do something you know you're going to enjoy, will bring joy to you, and say, for 14 minutes a day, I'm going to go for a walk. That's it. Doesn't sound like a lot. Exercise gurus will tell you, it's not going to do much difference. But you add up 14 minutes a day over the course of a year, that's a lot of walking. And that's a good start. Or maybe there's this book by your bed you've wanted to read for 2 years. It's just been sitting there for 2 years. You never have time to read it. So you say, I'm going to set aside 14 minutes. 14 minutes, that's it. And I'm going to read a book. You know how many books you can read in a year if you'd read 14 minutes a day? My goodness, you could read a whole library of books 14 minutes a day. So it's not about having to do a whole bunch, but that one little 1%. Do you know you can read through the entire Bible in a year in just 10 to 12 minutes a day? Now, that's because there are some places like Leviticus where you can just skip the whole book, right? But still, 10 to 12 minutes a day, you could read through the entire Bible if you wanted to. So what is one thing in your life that you'd really like to do and you never have the time to do it, but if you started 14 minutes a day, a new hobby, something new that you want to do in your life, and just said, during the Lenten season, I'm going to start practicing 14 minutes a day and do something. What would it do? What would you do? What would it be that would bring you joy that you could do in 14 minutes a day? Or set aside the 14 minutes. What's one thing I could do that could begin to change my life? So, for example, let's say that you do want to lose weight, but you don't want to go on a diet. So researchers say, just do one thing. Stop drinking sugar. That's it. Don't drink sugar pop. Don't put sugar in your tea or your coffee. Don't drink a lot of juices. Just stop drinking sugar. I had one guy come up to me a few months ago and said, I quit drinking Coca-Cola, and I lost 14 pounds in a couple months. Just by that one thing. And then, of course, you stop drinking sugar, and pretty soon you start doing other things that are healthy. But just stop drinking sugar. Or maybe there's, one of the things that you want to do is get your finances in order. So my daughter came up with this idea last night. She said she's gonna drop Amazon for Lent. By the way, stock prices dropped last night on Amazon. I don't know if you saw that. So she's not going to do Amazon. One thing, all right, just to try to get her finances in order. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. So some of you maybe look at your house, and some of us have a gift for cleaning our house, some of us don't. And maybe your house is just like a tornado every day. And I know I got to clean my house, but I don't have the 24 hours to clean my house. Researchers say do one thing. Make your bed every day. That's it. Just make your bed. That's it. Make your bed. And over the course of a year, you'll find once you get in the habit of making your bed, then you start to do other things as well. It's just one thing can change everything. It doesn't have to be 110%. Just 1% can change everything. So what I'd like you to do this Lenten season, if you'd like, all right, is to think about that one thing that you'd like to do that would bring you joy, that you've always wanted to do and you just never have the time to do it, you don't have the chutzpah to do it, and just make the decision, I'm going to do this one thing during the Lenten season. And then as you do it, while you're making that bed or going for a walk, or you crave that sugar drink and you're not going to drink it, or you're Alicia and you're going to get onto Amazon Prime because you got to have something, just stop and say, God, thank you for your grace. Thank you for being enough in my life. And thank you for the joy that you bring to me. So the first thing I want to invite you to do this Lenten season is that 1% thing. What's one thing you want to do? The Bible says that Jesus endured the cross because of the joy set before him. All right? In other words, Jesus endured the cross because of you, because of the joy he was going to bring to you. And so even though this Lenten season tends to be about sacrifice, it's a time of joy as well. So what's one thing that will bring you joy? Now, here's the second thing I want to invite you to do if you want to do it, all right? And hopefully, when you came in, each family received a little piece of paper. If you did not, one little piece of paper per family, all right? So if you don't have one, I want you to raise your hands, all right? Because I'm going to do a little experiment. You got to trust me on this. All right, it looks like the ushers did a really good job, all right? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think through how much money you make in a week. All right, now some of you don't know what you make in a week, all right, because you're paid every other week or once a month. So take whatever you make in a year, divide it by 52. All right, if you have to take your phones out and do a little calculator work, go right ahead. But I want you to think, approximately what do you make? And some of you are going to ask me the question, is it gross or net? Just whatever, okay? Whatever. So what is it you make once a year, or once a week, and then what's 1% of that? So if you make $500 a week, 1% of $500 is? Wow, this is a slow crowd. $5. Yeah. I know a lot of us are beyond math, right? If you make, I'm going to really stretch you now. If you make $1,000 a week, what's 1% of that? $10. See, now you're getting into it, right? If you make $2,000 a week, 10% of that is $20, right? So I want you to think through what you make in a week, what's 1% of that, and then write down that number. If it's $5, $10, $20, we're going to do a little experiment here because I want to show you the power of 1% revolution. So I want you to write that number down and then fold it up and then hand it this way so the people on the end see it. Now, here, I want you to trust me on this. We are not going to do a handwriting analysis of this so that I know who you are, and then I'll say, okay, 5%, and so now you multiply that together by this, and so I know how much you make. That's not what we're going to do. What I want to do is at the end of the service, I'm going to show you the power of what 1% can do. Okay? So write that down. And here's the reason why I'm asking you to think about this. During the Lenten season, the second thing I want you to do is to consider bringing joy to others. And bringing that joy to others through your giving of an extra 1% of your income each week to the mission and ministry of Community of Grace, because of what we can do as we expand our mission and outreach together. What we do here is very important. What we do here is eternally important. And we want to up our game. And I know you want to up the game as well. So I'm inviting you to think about giving an extra 1% of your income every week for 6 weeks. Now, hopefully, you'll keep doing that for the year. So I want you to pass those in, make sure that our ushers get them. And I'm going to give you the totals from last night, just to give you an example of that. And we'll add your totals in at the end of the service. And what we're going to do as a church is during this Lenten season, we give 10% away, but we're going to give an extra 1% away over the next 6 weeks to feed my starving children in our project there. So we'll be giving 11% away for the 6 weeks of Lent. Okay? I announced last night, my wife was hearing this for the first time, that Jan and I had decided that we were going to give away 1% for a year. And we already give about 28% of our income to the church. And so we're going to give another 1% because we really believe in this and we know the power of the 1% revolution. So while you're turning that in, let me give you the stats from last night. So we had 45 giving pieces of paper that came in, all right, last night, for a total of $583 per week, which if you put that out for a year, is $30,000. That's 1%. That's significant. That's $30,000 of mission and ministry that we can do together with just 1%. So, for those of you who already are giving and giving generously, I want to invite you to up it at 1%. For those of you who have never, ever given before and discovered the joy of giving, I want to invite you to consider giving 1% of your income. If it's $5, $10, you can do that. You know how many cups of coffee you can buy at Starbucks for $10? 1.25. Okay? But you put that out over the course of a year, you can change a lot of lives with that. Some of you come and you are with us for the winter months, and you give basically your money to your church back home. That's great. But maybe you want to give 1% at least during the Lenten season to Community of Grace to support this mission. So what we're talking about for the Lenten season is to prepare our hearts for what God is up to by picking one thing in your life that will bring you joy, and by giving an extra 1% that will bring joy to others. Okay? And again, if you don't want to do this, God's still going to love you. If you want to do this, God's not going to love you anymore. But it is a way for us to experience the joy that God has for us this Lenten season and to make it a better Lenten season for the people around us. So with